ready to begin, and there's a whole lot of preparation. Your intention to carve off this block of time to when there's so many other things that are always clamouring for our attention. So, as you arrive, collect yourself. Such a good word. Collect yourself. Recollect where we've been. This session marks the close of a series of 20-minute explorations into the mystery and the mechanism of the breath. In those early sessions, we set up an image, really, of fine sand suspended in water in a glass jar. And when the jar is shaken, then the water is murky. There's a lack of clarity. And then if something settles down, and when that happens, the stilling of the agitation, then the grains of sand slowly sink and settle down to the extent that the agitation ceases, something stops. We're often rushing around saying, I must do this and I must do that, and I call it masturbation. There's a sense of the touch of a cattle prod, and that creates agitation. And our aim is to get clear in these sessions, to become, in an inner sense, able to see our way, I guess, to become more discerning as the fine grains of sand settle. So we could begin with this current breath. More molecules travelled in through your nose in that breath on that inward journey than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the world. Time and again we're brought to a state of awe or humility by the sheer wondrous complexities of life. Life. So we could continue just paying attention to the touch of the breath. And we've considered that from the play, the movement of air as it moves the tiny little hairs on the skin surface, as the skin breathes, as a kind of global image of our dependency and interdependency on the air in the room, the air around, and the touch of it, becoming a more directed current of energy as it enters the nostrils, and the extraordinary movement of the tiny little hairs in the nose that wave and pulse like wheat in a wheat field, responding to and moving, cleaning, preparing, nourishing, warming the air on its journey to the core, where it will not only touch every cell membrane but cross that cell membrane and energize the tiny little battery within each cell. So we could begin at the deepest touch of the breath. And consider how every single cell in the multi-trillion cell community that forms you and me contains not only an energy system, a battery, but also a library that contains the growth blueprint. And it's the same growth blueprint that was present when there was, after the moment of conception, only one cell. And that cell created you in this living moment. It's kind of a trajectory. Which again is awesome, but here we are in this moment. We've been working towards deepening an appreciation of the physicality of breath, and in the last few sessions just exploring a kind of hands-on enhancement of that, where you put the right hand on your chest and the left hand on your belly if you feel comfortable to position your hands in that way. And just follow the movements, however, whatever. It's good to make sure that with your hands in that position there's no tension around the shoulder blades. There's no lifting. If anything, there's a space, a kind of easing out to each elbow. That in itself becomes part of a settling down. It's a stilling process. It's an enabling process. It enables an inner clarity. And in that settling down, there's no inertia, there's no collapse. It's a stilling process that quickens your perception. As you guide your attention in an interplay with the field of awareness, in particular the awareness of the movements of the breath. Okay, if you let your hands drop into your lap. Awareness and the field of awareness is something that you are. Quality of being. Whereas attention is something that you do and control. You can move it, retract it, you can give it. We tend to use a kind of investment analogy by paying attention. So you can give me your attention, but in no sense that we would understand, could you give me your awareness? Your attention to an awareness of the movements of the breath. This conscious presence of your attention inwardly inflected or turned as it is can turn potential tight spaces into expanded actual spaces. And in that way it can expand compartments that are restricted, and it can free blocked channels so that they can flow more freely. On a bigger horizon, it seems to make sense to think that that's life energy moving more freely, more expansively, more briskly around the internal environment. So there's one particular space to allow your attention to open to and to expand the space between the close of the out breaths and the beginning of the in breaths. So we can inhabit that space. There's a sense of one particular compartment that's so deeply involved with this process, which is really the chest. And consider how when we're deeply depressed, it's a very restricted space. It's sometimes expressed as a horse's hoof pressing down on the chest. It becomes a very restricted, constricted space. Compared to what happens when we're in love, and it's a very open, expansive, light space. Maybe as we come to the close of this particular series and this session, perhaps it's become clearer, easier to find a way that opens the space between that zone, the end of the out breath, and the beginning of the in-breath. If this time you'd like to take just the right hand and place it on the breastbone and arrange it so that the thumb is along the length of the upper part of the sternum, the breastbone, around that place where the collarbones and the breastbone meet. In many ways, that space, that zone, is a zone of returning. Each breath will return through it. The fact that you're consciously present and it becomes an expanded space is kind of like a hack in a way. You're hacking into that space. And let's just use maybe a dozen or so breaths to go through that process and maybe expand more into the detail from the last session, where the possibility that the natural dropping under gravity of the breastbone, which happens in that space, could just continue into the in-breath. So there's nothing, no lift, no. So the game then becomes one of continually kind of swinging on the thread of that opening and dropping, and one of sending the breath anywhere else. Downwards, outwards. So maybe as you drop your right hand back down again, its presence, the warmth, the feel of your thumb is still there, or a memory of it. And continue to enter that space, the space of returning. It's a space of spaciousness, really, emptiness, stillness. As that space expands, it's a space of watchful anticipation. And inhabit it sufficiently, and it becomes clear that it's a space of acceptance, patience, gratitude for the next breath. Self-care, compassion. As we come to the close of this session, we can return again to the idea of the blueprint that was contained in that original cell at the moment of conception and is still present in every one of the multi-trillions of cells. We considered how shortly after that moment there's an explosion of cell duplication, multiplication, growth. It then needs to become sheets to expand, and then rapidly there's a need for the sheets to fold in order to continue growth and expansion. And that first fold is still in this present moment now, there at the core of your support structure. It's right in the center of the disc between the backbones, vertebra. So as we close, there's a sense that we're all together caught on a thread between the center of the earth and the sky, the heavens. How the energy of gravity moving through that center, moving through the core and center of you to the core and center of the earth, how that works in intimate partnership with the energy of the breath as it moves around, carrying life energy, transporting. That sense of blossoming, of opening, that quality of attention that is open, receptive, inclusive, can enable us to value, cherish, nurture empty space. Stillness. Clarity. And the implicit hope, aspiration that the time that we spend together exploring the mystery and the mechanism of the breath is energizing, so that as your attention comes back, it's such a nice idea to think of it coming back through the core of your support structure in a vital, lively way with a sense of clarity, not to say purification, and readiness to get on with the rest of the day.